Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining from around Israel and from around the world. My name is O. I'm a partner and head of innovation and global ventures in Arieli Capital, and we're very, very happy to host this beautiful event at a beautiful location called Elat. And we are broadcasting from this beautiful marina. I'm moving out of the picture so you can see it. This is the Elat Marina, and we are in the special location of Dan Hotels. And we want to thank our partners at Dan Hotels and Dan Panorama Elat for hosting us. And we are now going to dive right in to our Ocean Tech Community first ever event. So we'll start by saying a lot of thanks because we have a lot of amazing partners and people that make this thing possible. We're going to start from the top left, Arieli. We're going to explain more about us in a second. Startup Nation Central, we're going to have Michal say some words. Elat Hub, the most southern innovation center in the state of Israel. Ben Gurion University, the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, Haifa University, the Inter-University Institute in Elat, the Underwater Observatory in Elat, Aquatech, Ardag, the Israel Port Association, the Italian Chamber of Commerce, SNE, Brink, E-Concrete, the Elat Economic Company, the Elat Municipality, Frontier Innovation Center, the this is a tricky one. The Center for Marine Agriculture, or Malchi, in Israel, and of course, like I said, Hotels. So let's start. About the community founders, Arieli Capital is a premier holding and investment company leading Israel's most advanced innovation centers. Our innovation centers are strategically positioned throughout Israel, from the very north to the very south, tapping into the leading industries verticals. We are spread out with headquarters in the US, in New York, and in Tel Aviv, and with activities in the EU and in China. In Elat, obviously, where we're broadcasting from right now, we have the beautiful location of Elat Hub with tourism and climate, and Ramat Negev, the innovation center that deals with desert, agri-tech, and food tech, super important verticals that deal with climate change. In Tel Aviv and Herzliya, we have academic commercialization platforms and our fintech centers, and in the north, the food tech centers. So let's talk about what we hear all together to discuss. Over 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. Every aspect of our life is affected by the oceans, by the sea, from food to transportation to commerce, climate, energy, and more. In numbers, over $3 trillion is the blue economy market worth per year. That affects over 5% of the global GDP, and over 40 million direct full-time jobs are created by the blue economy. Obviously, a lot more if it's not direct. The common ground is actually not ground at all. It's water. This is what connects us all. And when we talk about what connects us all, we have to also discuss the problem. We saw all these great numbers of jobs and commerce and market potential, but we have to remember one thing. We're not really treating oceans the right way. We could do better and protect and preserve this beautiful asset that we all grew up on. We all have this memory of growing up and going to the beach and swimming and seeing the fish or diving. This is what connects us all, and we need to protect it and do a better job of tapping into this beautiful resource. So the Ocean Tech Community, what is it? Our mission statement is to assist in the development of a sustainable and holistic collaborative ecosystem in the field of our seas and our oceans by advancing the flowing cross-sector and cross-vertical programs and platforms by doing two main activities. Number one, knowledge sharing, and number two, innovation-based projects. The Ocean Tech community deals with the following verticals: deep sea research, shipping, trade, logistics, and transportation, food, marine, agriculture, aquaculture, and climate, energy, marine life, preservation, and more. The sector that the Ocean Tech community will work to connect and lead joint and mutual projects in are government, academia, industry and innovation, and research. So let's dive in. What are we going to do today? These were my opening remarks. We're going to move now to Startup Nation Central, our partners, Michal Serur, who's going to explain more about the ecosystem development direction. We're going to move to our keynote speaker, Eric Diamant, Dr. Eric Diamant, professor of marine science from the Maurice Kahn Research Haifa University. Then we're going to have a good tech company discussion, which is going to be led by Michal, together with Ido Sela, the CEO of eConcrete. And we're going to end with a beautiful dessert of a virtual tour of the Israeli ocean tech ecosystem. You will get to know the leading research, academic, and industry institutes in Israel from the very southern point all the way to the northern point. With that, I'm going to move this broadcast to Michal.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. It's my great pleasure to be here today and collaborate on this event. And I'm really happy to see so many participants that the ocean is close to their heart, because otherwise they wouldn't be joining us today. And to be honest, I'm quite astounded when we look at the numbers and statistics, because for those of you that know Startup Nation Central, we're all about the data and the information. And there's 50 to 80% of all life on Earth is found under the ocean's surface. The ocean contains 99% of the living space on the planet, but then only 10% of that space has ever been explored by humans, which is phenomenal numbers. But at the same time, 70% of the debris that humans create sinks into these oceans, 15% of that floats, and 15% lands on our beaches. These are astounding numbers, and little has been done due to the lack of global regulation, international collaborations, and lack of governmental incentives. And what we see usually at the forefront are the nonprofits, NGOs, initiatives such as these, where people are just taking these things into their two hands. And they're in that battle against illegal fishing, terrain decimation, lack of political interest, and kind of driving the force of putting the ocean onto our international agenda. For those of you that don't know us, Startup Nation Central, we're a nonprofit organization, and we promote Israeli tech innovation. We do this in three main ways. First of all, we map the entire Israeli tech innovation ecosystem. And if you're a startup in the area of ocean tech or on any of those verticals that all mentioned, please make sure that you register on Startup Nation Central and make sure you're there, because we're looking for as many startups to put out there and for global corporates and international organizations to be able to find you. The other way that we promote Israeli tech innovation is that we host over 1,000 global corporates that come to Israel, look at Israel for tech innovation. And a lot of them nowadays are looking for these areas of impact and sustainability, not as CSR, not as greenwash, but rather really looking at how they can help the oceans, because very often these oceans are the source of everything of their business and everything that they do. The last thing that we do is we help local players with common interests. We bring them together in order to draw on our combined strength, just like this event. We've been part of bringing Israeli tech to the world to help the global challenges around the world, including developing countries. And it is time that we bring this Israeli ingenuity to where it is most needed, the environment and specifically the oceans. So I think together, all of us, both researchers, Israeli startups, and governments, politicians as well, we have an aggregated fountain of knowledge, experience, and goodwill to make this to the turn for the best. So Oren, Ella, and all our speakers today, thank you for taking another step to making this a better world. And Startup Nation Central looks forward to supporting this initiative in the coming future and all future events that we will have around this topic. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we sharing the screen? Can we see this? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Eric, we can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you and we can see your presentation too.
Okay, well, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to this webinar. It's a privilege to speak to such a distinguished audience. In the next 20 minutes, I'd like to take a look together with you at our oceans and delve into the reasons why we should take better care of them. Historically, the ocean has always been considered infinite. And no matter what we threw at it, it could always take it all. And so with this mindset, humanity overfished the ocean, used it as an enormous garbage dump, polluted it with effluents, and pretty much did anything we felt like. And then came a day when we received a wake-up call. This happened during the late 1980s, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But first, let's take a quick look at why our oceans matter. We really can't exaggerate the importance of the oceans to our existence. Let's go over these 7 points briefly. The air we breathe, oxygen. More than half of the oxygen that we breathe actually comes from the marine photosynthesizers like cyanobacteria, phytoplankton, algae, and seaweeds. And in fact, there is a single highly abundant microscopic cyanobacterium. It's called Prochlorococcus. It's a blue-green algae. It alone is responsible for producing 20% of the oxygen in our atmosphere, which is awesome. The world's climate and weather patterns are closely regulated by the oceans. The oceans absorb a great deal of the heat that we generate and transport it to the tropical equator region, from the tropical equator region to the poles, which are much cooler, of course. In this day and age of increased greenhouse gas emissions and the ongoing global climate change, it's really difficult to even imagine what it would be like to live on our planet without the mitigating effects of the oceans. The amount of the heat that we put into the world's oceans in the past 25 years alone is equal to 3.6 billion Hiroshima A-bomb explosions, which is quite a lot. Okay, next, the maritime transport. This is the backbone of global economy, and the world's supply chains depend heavily on the oceans. Up to 80% of the global trade by volume is through the oceans. In the last year, we've seen these numbers seriously impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We all felt it. A survey of the effect of the pandemic on global supply chains was carried out by United Nations Conference of Trade and Development, and it showed that a major drop in ship calls in Europe and the Mediterranean was also seen in a significant decline in Australia and Oceania. And if we look at this chart here, we can see that on the upper one, on the right-hand side, it says RORO, which is roll on, roll off. It's a term in maritime transport. This is just vehicles that are rolled on and off ships. There's a 22.8% a reduction in the activity of this only in vehicles during the second quarter of 2020. And in the bottom, on the bottom chart, we can see how drastic in Europe and the Mediterranean, which is the second from the left, has gone down by 25%, the total number of ship calls. The same in North America, 21%. So this is something that has happened during the past year. And of course, we expect that this should start getting back to normal once the pandemic is under control again. Okay, when we think about recreation and leisure, it's impossible even to imagine our world without the oceans. Beachcombing, fishing, boating, diving, snorkeling, swimming, surfing, sailing, whale watching, you name it. The ocean provides us with a large variety of sports and various recreation activities. Now, global travel and tourism has an estimated worth of nearly 10% of the global GDP, the gross domestic product, and supporting over 100 million jobs. So it's one of the world's largest industries. Next, the oceans hold an enormous potential for the future of medicine. Already today, numerous therapeutic biosubstances that originate from the marine organisms are utilized as drugs to treat various diseases. Here are a few examples. Such marine drugs are used to fight diseases like cancer, arthritis, heart disease, and others. On a smaller scale, marine ingredients are used widely in the food tech industry for foods such as peanut butter, soy milk, vegan crackers, and so forth. Now, this food trend is likely to grow rapidly in the future. And this brings us to the final point on our list, food from the sea. Now, let's go back to that wake-up call that mentioned earlier. The year was 1990. The annual fisheries catch, which in previous years until 1985 increased steadily from year to year, had stagnated, stopping at about 90 million tons per year. This scenario took place for several straight years in a row. Now, fast forward to the present, today at 2021, the annual global fishery catch is still the same at about 90 million tons. Now, the reason is quite simple. The oceans have reached their carrying capacity. They cannot provide any more fish and seafood than they are providing today. We've gradually pushed the oceans to their limit. Now, historically, the worldwide deterioration of coastal ecosystems began with human expansion, which led to fishing and then overfishing. And after decades of relentless abuse, it typically included the 5 disturbances that we see listed in this chart. The oceans in 1990 told us that the ocean is not infinite. And these additional findings prompted headlines like, "Are the oceans dying?" to appear in the world media, according to a well-known study from 2006 by a group, Worm et al. The loss of ocean diversity at that point was accelerating so quickly that nearly 1/3 of the seafood species populations that humans consume had already crashed. The researchers warned that if the current long-term trend continues, within 30 years, there will be little or no seafood left for sustainable harvest. And by the mid-century, all large game fish will be fished out. Okay, an anecdote. This apocalyptic forecast that I just described by Warm et al. Was published in 2006 and has since been retracted by the authors of that paper, as well as rebutted by other marine biologists. However, it's quoted by Netflix film director Ali Tabrizi in his recent movie on Netflix, Seaspiracy, to support his documentary agenda to halt world fishing and leave the oceans alone. Now, regardless of this, and other inaccuracies in this documentary, I really strongly recommend watching this Netflix movie because it is very, very interesting, and I'm sure that everyone in the audience will be interested in seeing it. Okay, we don't have the time to go into the details here, but trawl fishing, dragging nets around, trawling is dragging nets along the ocean bottom. Does serious damage to the seabed, destroying animals and plants on the seafloor. Mega factory ships like this one that we see here work the ocean bottom, sucking up everything in unimaginable amounts. Obviously, the damage these ships cause can take a very long time to recover. And besides the damage to the seabed, only part of the catch brought by the nets to the ship is then actually utilized. Fish and shellfish that have little or no commercial value, which are called bycatch, are often thrown back overboard. And even if they're still alive, only a few of them survive the traumatic event. So the big question is, how long can we continue on this track? The world population, which is currently 7.9 billion, our demand for fish is constantly growing. In some countries like Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Portugal, Iceland, Greenland, in these countries, the average person annually consumes 180 kilograms of fish and seafood. We can see it on the map here, marked red. These countries are avid seafood users and consumers. Now, at the same time, in other countries, in Africa, West Asia, in the Middle East, and South America, fish availability and consumption per capita is scant and at less than 5 kilos per year. Now, over 3 billion of the world population depends almost entirely on fish for their daily protein intake. But it's not only protein. Fish and seafood also provide bioavailable micronutrients and essential fatty acids that are not easily found in land-based foods. And therefore, fish are uniquely placed to contribute significantly to global food and nutrition security. Now, with the ever-growing population and increasing demand for fish and seafood, fish farming and aquaculture industries, and this is the blue graph above the orange one, which shows the capture fisheries. The blue one shows the aquaculture and fish farming, and this one has taken off and expanded at an impressive rate over the last decades. Aquaculture has more than doubled the availability of fish and shellfish on the world market. At the bottom of the chart, we can see the famous plateau of 90 million tons of the capture fisheries that I just mentioned. Now, today, aquaculture produces more food than is captured in the wild. And we can safely say that the chances are that every second fish that is consumed in the world today grew up on a farm. The Morris Kahn Station for Marine Research of the University of Haifa is involved with various aspects of ocean research. We'll probably hear about it a little later, including the advancement of marine aquaculture. Now, just before the COVID-19 pandemic put the world on hold, we organized an international symposium on food from the sea. It was held on the Mount Carmel campus of the university in mid-January 2020. And was attended by hundreds of interested stakeholders, academic and students. Global food security issues were at the core of the discussions. One term which came up repeatedly during the symposium was sustainability of the ocean's resources. Now, sustainability can be defined in many ways, but in the end, it all boils down to the well-being and vitality of the marine food web, which drives marine ecosystems. The ocean food webs are complex. The largest predators, such as sharks, dolphins, and seals, and so forth, feed on large fish, which in turn feed on smaller fish and shellfish, which in turn feed on still smaller organisms and seaweeds, all the way down to the zooplankton and phytoplankton. The changes in marine ecosystems due to overfishing is often called fishing down the marine food web. As more and more top predators are removed by fishing, fishermen must target smaller and smaller fish that are lower in the food web, and thus they reduce their numbers as well. But when you remove too many of these smaller species located down the food web, you not only exhaust their populations, you also affect the chances for the recovery of the higher up predatory species. This has been shown to be extremely environmentally destructive in parts of the world oceans, and it's a serious problem. Now, it seems that for sustainability's sake, we should be focusing on consuming organisms that are low on the food web, such as herring and mullet, and not those on at the top predators like tuna, grouper, and salmon. But as always, you know, nothing is simple. And here we meet an ethical philosophical conundrum. Consider a large bluefin tuna, say weighing 300 kilos. Now, is the life of this single fish more precious than all the lives of the 1,500 gray mullet that weigh about the same 300 kilos? I mean, is taking 1,500 lives more ethical than taking the life of one top predator just because of those 1,500 fish are on a lower level in the food chain? This is a question that has to be answered. One thing is for sure, our future lies in sustainability. Serious questions remain whether and how supply and sustainability can grow hand in hand together. Many believe that they can, but for that to happen, we'll probably have to stop being seafood snobs and focus on changing our consumer habits to focus on fish and seafood species like shrimp, clam, seaweed, and other organisms that are positioned low on the marine food web. One thing seems certain, the awareness for the gradual reduction of the trophic level of the food from the sea is steadily gaining popularity in many societies along the globe. In a new study just published in Nature a few months ago, food from the sea produced from capture fisheries and aquaculture seems to account for 70% of the global production of total edible animal protein. Experts maintain that any further expansion of land-based agriculture at the expense of remaining natural land habitat for boosting global food production will surely cause more biodiversity loss and is also likely to further exacerbate climate change. The conclusion here is that we need to focus on the oceans for the answers to the world's future food security. And those are just a few reasons why we should care about our oceans. I'd like to wrap up this short presentation with this message. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Dr. Sylvia Earle. She's a world-renowned 85-year-old marine biologist, and Dr. Earle is a pioneer ocean researcher who has, while visiting Israel a few years ago, even received an honorary degree from the University of Haifa in honor of her breakthrough research, leadership, and inspiration. No doubt she added the degree to her collection of 21 other honorary degrees and awards that she received before. In any case, on Earth Day, which was last week, April 22, Dr. Earl issued a statement on the status of our oceans, and among other things was this insight. The oceans are the blue heart of the planet. We have to take good care of them, knowing that the oceans are what keeps us alive. This knowledge should dominate both our thinking and our actions. Thank you.
Arik, thank you very much for that. That was extremely interesting. I think as well, you've touched on quite a few points there and things that were inspirational for me as well. You mentioned Seaspiracy as kind of a good way to deep dive into what's happening in our oceans. I must say that this Netflix video actually changed the way that I eat and consume food, which was extremely interesting. So thank you for that. And I think there's a lot of food for thought there, pun intended, and something that all of us need to take both on a global level, but also on a personal level. And that's part of that responsibility. And I think from our side of this equation, looking at technology and how technology can really contribute to making the seas a safer place for all of us is something that we all should think about. And I think anybody that has any innovation in any area should be considering this. And this takes me to present our next speaker, which is Ido Sela. And we're going to have a little bit of an interview with him. And Ido, thank you very much for making the time to speak with us today. Ido is the co-founder and the CEO of eConcrete. And a lot of people here on the call probably know eConcrete very well. It's a pioneer startup that put on the global map Israeli ocean technologies, I think, in a way. And the success story is closely tied to a big and unexpected loss of the co-founder, Shimrit Perkol-Finkel, who tragically passed away in a car incident just March this year, which is a huge loss to the entire ecosystem, female entrepreneurship, which is close to my heart as well. And I think Ido would have been very excited to see all these people here today talking about the oceans and how tech can help them. So Ido, just so you know, Ido is considered a forerunner in the field of ecological enhancement of coastal marine infrastructure. He is also involved in the planning and execution of projects such as ecological breakwaters, marinas, waterfronts across the globe. Ido is also a marine biologist and ecologist. He's a Tel Aviv University graduate. He has patents under his name ranging from aquafarming, biological materials, to construction technologies, and he actually appears in over 20 scientific publications. And also I had the privilege to talk to Ido and to hear him speak just this week, was it this week, last week, and the EIT event as well, speaking to the Europeans and all his actions and all their work that they're doing in Europe as well. Ido, thank you for joining us today. And just for the sake of those that are not too familiar with eConcrete or kind of joining us for the first time, if you can give us just a few kind of an elevator pitch about eConcrete and what you guys have been doing.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. A little bit about eConcrete. eConcrete was founded in 2012 by myself and my co-founder, Shimrit Perkol-Finkel, which tragically lost her life last month, which is, for me, is a huge personal loss. We've been working together for the last 20 years, sharing the same desk from the university and up until a month ago. And started the work, working together on coastal infrastructure 20 years ago, on building on different structure in the Red Sea, and later on also in other regions, and the ecosystem services that they provide. We started at artificial reef. Later on, we address other, looked at other infrastructure that are out there in the water and completely changed the way that we see ecological functioning of those structures. 2012, we actually decided at a certain point, we decided to leave the university and to open eConcrete. And eConcrete was funded with a vision of bridging sustainability and development. And sustainability is a big word. But for us, is how we can gain some ecosystem services that are usually not associated with coastal infrastructure and get them back to function in the right way and not completely lose their functionality. Specifically because those infrastructure are usually replacing natural habitats. And we're marine biologists. We just decided to identify the biggest problem. And if you look at the biggest problem, and if you take into consideration that 50% of human population is reside along coastline, and all the associated infrastructure that's supporting them and their life, like ports and waterfronts and power plants and different septic system are sitting along the coastline. There's a lot of infrastructure out there, and we're just gaining more and more because of sea level rise prediction and increased storminess. And if you go into this infrastructure, 70% of them are concrete based. And this is where we decided that we need to change the way the industry is operating. And the idea was how we address concrete-based coastal infrastructure and making them provide a better ecosystem services.
Fantastic, thank you for that. And tell me, you actually are you're connecting the concepts of construction, right? Oceans, sustainability, and your clients on the other side are either these large corporates that are constructing or governments or municipalities. How open are they to connecting these concepts together?
So a lot of them are open, or most of them are open, but it's really related to incentives. Some of them is more incentivized to work in that way and to develop in that way, and than others. And if you look where Ecogrid currently is operating, we're currently operating in the Far East, in area where they're more open for environmental regulations, in the US, in Europe, Australia, New Zealand. And the reason is that the regulator from top down decided that the construction need to be addressed in a certain way. And basically the players within the field within the industry need to provide solutions that will comply with different regulations. And this basically push the different entities to look for solutions out there. And the solution can come from different regulations and mitigation banks and other incentives or permitting issues, but also from how we address the infrastructure in a way that will provide us some benefits that will be recognized by the regulator as efficient in terms of the targets, environmental targets. And in those regions, it's really straightforward. They're really looking for input, ecological input. They're looking for solutions that are science-based, that have been proven and validated by other entities. And this is where we operate. This is our comfort zone. Saying that, we see now more and more regions that don't have the regulation, or the regulations are now developing, that are looking for those solutions, and even regions that don't have the regulation at all, but entities that want to promote and have basically a vision of changing the way their industries is working and approaching it.
And you mentioned a lot of countries there. What about Israel? We're a country living on two oceans, both in the Mediterranean and in the Red Sea. Any hope there?
I always, when I ask this question, I said it's the best way to do R&D. We run an experiment that we do for New York and the Netherlands in the Mediterranean, in the coast of Tel Aviv and Ashdod. And when we work in the Bahamas or we work in down the Red Sea, we run experiments in a lot. Saying that, I don't think Israel is, first of all, Israel didn't address those aspects at the right time. And the big boom of coastal construction is towards the end, basically in Israel. So most of the coastal construction, the massive coastal construction that happened in Israel is going to end in the next 2 years. And it's going to be a very, if we look at the next 30 years or 40 years, there's not going to be a lot of change. And with that period of time, there was not enough environmental awareness in terms of how we regulate construction in the water. I hope it's going to be changed. I think there's going to be change. I think a lot of entities in Israel and a lot of regulatory agencies in Israel are looking at changing the way that we either permit construction or actually doing construction in the water. But we're not there yet. And again, unfortunately, it's a case of a technology that developed in Israel and implemented outside of Israel before being implemented locally.
Yeah, and we see that very often with many startups. We actually build the startup for the global market. So most of the work is actually looking out there and kind of finding the business opportunities there, which is fair enough. So the role of the regulators is quite clear. And they're the one that are creating that framework within where companies such as yourselves can work in. You come from the research world. You've been a researcher for a very long time, and I know that we have quite a few researchers on this call and listening in. Talk to me a little bit about that transition, going from being a researcher to an entrepreneur. What does that shift look like? And how can we encourage more researchers and great research that is out there to make that shift into a business model?
So we step out of the university, basically knowing a lot about biology and nothing else in terms of managing a business. I think that the benefit of stepping out of the university is your ability to learn and to get to process data quickly and efficiently. And this is something, and if you're stepping out of engineering or a life science study, you'll have the same. It's the same ability. So one of the benefits of Israel that platforms for business education, like a very, let's say 101 business education in Israel is very available. There's a lot of accelerators that are basically giving the tools to entrepreneurs in a very efficient, precise way. And we've been surfing on this wave of accelerators and different programs for very long time, and during the years moving from one to the other, and those are the one who actually gave us our base in know how to run a company, reading reports, financial reports, HR issues, negotiation. And I think this is one of the benefits of developing a company in Israel.
And I think also sometimes if somebody's really good at the technology and developing the technology, sometimes it might be the case of joining somebody that is a good CEO that knows how to run a company, and then kind of joining forces, each one bringing in their own strengths to create a significant company. I think that's great. And I know we don't have much time, but I did want to, if you could just finally comment on kind of the future of ocean tech and how you see Israeli tech playing in this future of the oceans that Arik just spelled out to us. We're not heading in a good direction. So how can Israeli tech help there?
I think there's two aspects that Israeli tech can operate in. One is, I think data management is something that is really missing in a lot of different industries that are operating in the blue environment. And we can start, or we can already seeing this in companies that are providing data regarding shipping, regarding cargo efficiency, operation in ports, etc. The other, which I think it's a huge source that Israel has and is not utilized in the proper way, is marine biologists. The ability of that you can find Israeli researchers all over the globe. It's amazing. We operating in a region, and we operating with the university, and it's gonna be an Israeli there. Usually with experience across the globe, because he's been traveling from postdoc to postdoc, or he had a part of a different expedition. Usually with a much broader understanding of ecosystems and environment. And I think it's something about the education, something about the way the Israeli Academy is working and how people are leaving and then coming back, or leaving and not coming back. But it's I think it's a resource. We are starting to see, for example, a lot of people are getting into startups that are related to biology in general, marine biology in general, not even within their specific course of study. And I think this is it's a hub of knowledge that is not utilized yet. And we generate a lot of marine biologists because, and in a very good quality. I think that's the reason our R&D is based in Israel, and we didn't move yet because we were asked many times to shift the center of the epicenter of the company to other regions. The resources, the human resources that you have in Israel in our field is really limited.
I agree with you on that, and it's all down to the people that are here. And I think it's really important that companies such as yourselves maintain their R&D center here. And it is that human aspect, which is so important and makes the difference. And I find also with our global corporates, whenever they come to us and they talk about any challenge that they have, they say, we love that entrepreneurial spirit. We love coming to these researchers, to these R&D centers, to these startups, giving them an idea or a problem. And they'll take it, they'll turn it around, and they'll come up with a solution, which is kind of that very Israeli. There's no problem. We can do anything. We might fail once, twice, 3 times, but we want to solve it, which I think very much comes down to what you described as that human element. So Ido, thank you so much for joining us today. And I really hope that this talk with you will inspire other researchers out there that are kind of thinking about if I should start a startup or not, is this good or not, to kind of really take it to the next step. Because I think there's great potential to a lot of studies and research and solutions that are out there, but it's not being applied to the rest of the world, and we need it, I think. I think we can agree on that. So once again, thank you so much, Ido Sela, CEO and co-founder of eConcrete. If anybody has any questions to him, you're welcome to add them in the chat. And I'll send it back to Or and Eilat to take it from here. Thank you, Ido.
Okay, thank you very much to everyone, to Ido, to Michal, to Professor Arik. Thank you very much for a very interesting talks and insights. Right now, we're going to move to our north to south, or actually south to north, virtual tour of the Israeli ocean tech ecosystem. We're going to meet the major players in research, in academic, and in industry that are going to tell us more about who they are and what they do in the field of ocean research and development. I think we're pretty much ready for that.
Hello everyone, my name is Nadav Shashar. I'm a marine biologist over in Eilat. I'm head of Ben-Gurion University's Marine Biology and Biotechnology program here in Eilat, in the Eilat campus of the university. Our program teaches students all the way from undergraduates to postdocs, along the way to masters and PhDs in the field of marine biology and biotechnology. We are very strong in the field which we call sea tech or ocean tech, and in that we do very diverse work. Anything from our students are being involved in raising fish or developing fish for different terms, to extracting chemicals from algae, but also things like marine optics and developing underwater sensors, to developing structures that will fit in different flume environment or different flow environments. And we have now a very unique design that is being deployed in the Tel Aviv harbor, to artificial reefs and planting corals and coral restoration. And though we do things which are dual use, both for human and for the marine environment. We are pretty successful in that. Our research is done here in Eilat, both in the lab and outside in the field. And also we collaborate with different countries, from Australia to Honduras to Europe, and keeps on going. In the Middle East, we have some collaborations and so on. Obviously, we work with a range of universities here in Israel. One of the things which I would like to mention is that Ben-Gurion University, in its program for developing for what we call the next 50 years, but it's actually much more than that. It's the change of what's going to happen in the university. We put as the flag of the Eilat campus, developing the field of C-Tech. And that's the way it's actually written in the program. And that means both support, but also having students from different fields, from engineering and economics and tourism, and of course, marine biologists, all working together and studying together to create the new minds in this field, but also the workforce. So we are very excited to be part of this meeting and this conference, and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you very much.
Shalom, my name is Professor Jaap van Rijn. I'm the current academic director of the Inter-University Institute for Marine Sciences in Eilat. Our institute was built in 1968 on the shores of the northern Gulf of Aqaba, next to a flourishing coral reef adjacent to deep oligotrophic sea. It started in 1968 as the Heinz Steinitz Marine Biology Laboratory of the Hebrew University. And 16 years later, in 1984, we became an inter-university institute, which is quite unique in Israel. The IOI is supported by the Planning and Budgeting Committee of the Council for Higher Education in Israel, and basically features two main activities: research and teaching. As far as research is concerned, we host 8 permanent resident scientists who are associated with all major universities in Israel, and they carry out on a permanent basis research. They and their group of technicians and students carry out research on a permanent basis over here. Besides the resident scientists, we also host many scientists from the universities in Israel who do research here on a temporary basis, from days to weeks, together with their students. And we also host many foreign scientists yearly at our premises. Apart from research, our institute is also engaged in education. And every year we organize in between 20 to 25 graduate courses for students from all major universities in Israel. And also we offer some international courses that are taught in English, so that students from abroad can also participate in our courses. The courses cover all major disciplines in marine sciences and are taught by the leading experts in the respective fields. Training and the course at the IOI have been highly productive. Over 90% of the Israeli marine researchers and marine-related high-level professionals in governmental institutes gained part of their training and education at the IOI. The location of the IOI, next to a flourishing coral reef and the typical calm waters in the sea, provide the researchers with unique settings with major logistical advantages for field studies. One could say that the Institute is a one-stop shop for researchers. We provide the researchers with excellent facilities, diving facilities, research vessel facilities, modern laboratories, vicinity very close to the sea. It only takes a 15 minutes boat ride to reach depths of 750 meters, a situation or conditions which are very seldom found in other marine research laboratories. As academic director of the IOI, I heartily welcome you to become part of our scientific community at the Institute. Our future aim is to become an international hub for research in the field of marine sciences, as well as education in the field of marine sciences. We are, over the last years, we are constantly growing in order to fulfill this aim. And again, you are very welcome to become part of it. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Ardag Aquaculture. My name is Kobi Taral. I'm Ardag's hatchery manager, and I'm happy to introduce you to one of the largest mariculture companies in Israel. Ardag Aquaculture is a group owned by 5 kibbutzim from the Arava Valley. Its main activities include fish farming for the food industry, marine fingerling production, and sturgeon farming to produce high-end caviar. Ardag has been practicing aquaculture for more than 35 years, both in the Red Sea and in the Mediterranean. We are experienced in operating sea cage farms and land-based facilities, including RAS. Considering the growing demand for food, our mission as an aquaculture company is to be able to provide an affordable, healthy source of farmed protein to replace wild-caught fish, and to do so while being environmentally responsible and while promoting viable sustainability. It is not an easy task. To meet the challenge, we need to harness innovation and to implement new methods and technology. Here are just a few examples from our hatchery. Our classic broodstock selection program is now supported by a genetic analysis methodology, which helps us improve our genetic pool faster and produce better eggs, which later become better fish. We collect data from the various production stages and use advanced data analysis to better understand and improve our production line. We are currently involved in several initiatives that take sustainability into account and are in the field of water treatment, fish health, and fish domestication. Additional collaborations are aimed to develop an alternative to fish meal, thus reducing its use in fish feed production. We are willing to take an active role in promoting innovation in the field of aquaculture, and we are proud to take part in the Ocean Tech initiative. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Aviv Levy. I am the curator of the Underwater Marine Park here in Eilat, Israel. And we have a lot of things that we can teach and help people do this thing. The most obvious thing is the big thing that we have with our tourists, the big people that come here to see in Eilat. They see the underwater world of the Red Sea. And we have not only the aquariums, we definitely have the underwater observatory. It is a unique in the world where people go down into the ocean without getting wet, and they can see the real life that happens in the ocean without any interference, and this is the true window. So this is something that can actually change the ability of people to see the ocean, and also without any interference, because we can get millions of people into the water, not only without getting wet, but with very little interference with what is happening under the water. Here in the Marine Park, we also deal with a lot of breeding of animals. We have our seahorse breeding that we breed them and return them to nature. And we also have turtle rehabilitation. The turtles that are born here in the Marine Park, we release them into the ocean. We do the same thing with sea anemones and anemones, trying to recreate some kind of a little ecosystem to do it. But basically one of our biggest programs is the rehab of corals with children from schools. And during the whole school year, children from Eilat schools come to the Underwater Observatory Marine Park. They learn about fish, they learn about the corals, but the big thing about the program, every child gets his own coral. This coral is grown by the child for the year, and although it's the end of the year, it's only the beginning, because the end of the year, we return these corals to the ocean with the help of the divers team of the Marine Park, and this way the children are aware that the corals that they grow is now in the ocean, and they need to take care of the ocean to make sure that the coral will grow in the future. We see the outcome, and this is really how we manage to make the new generation aware not only of the importance, but about the difficulties and the big problems that the nature has in these days.
My name is Dr. Moran Segoli, and I'm a soil and water researcher here in Ramat Negev Desert Agro Research Center. We're located in the harsh Negev Desert. We specialize in irrigation under desert conditions, utilizing different qualities of water, including brackish water, to grow a variety of fruit, vegetables, and aquaculture. Our research is focused on practical science that enables farmers to grow profitable crops We give continuous guidance through our direct contact with the local farmers. Our first goal is to help the local farmers solve problems. They come to us with agriculture problems and we perform experiments and use the results to answer their questions. Our second goal is to find novel methods and new crops to optimize their growth for our local farming conditions. A large variety of crops gives versatility and resilience to our local farmers.
Our third goal is to be a knowledge center that connects the farmers to their universities and other research facilities.
Next to the Ramat Negev Desert Agro Research Center is the largest indoor RAS aquaculture in Israel. This facility can grow 2,000 tons of barramundi fish a year using brackish groundwater. This closed-circuit system has total control on the water properties and temperature that the fish grow in and can use less than 250 liters of water to produce a kilogram of fish. The excess water undergoes treatment to remove contaminants and then is used to irrigate olive orchards that benefit from the addition of nitrogen in the water. We are also starting a new project to optimize the growth of shrimp here in the desert and use its influence in local agriculture.
Hello everyone, my name is Shai Tal and I'm a researcher at the National Center for Mariculture in Eilat. And this is part of the National Center for Mariculture is a part of Israel Oceanographic and Limnological Research Institute. I would like to thank the organizers for letting me introduce the institute here in this meeting. And I'll start with introducing the aim of the institute. Basically, we're here to provide the scientific and technological infrastructure for the development of mariculture and the associated biotechnological industries in Israel, and doing it while using the ocean resources in a sustainable manner. And sustainability is an important factor here. Everyone must take care of that, otherwise there is no point in developing the technologies. Basically, we work with various organisms, different scales, different type of organisms, work with fish, different type of fish, shellfish, different type of shellfish, algae, again, different types from microalgae to macroalgae. And generally speaking, our research is application-driven, multidisciplinary research, and we go from basic science through the development stage up to the commercial and semi-commercial scale. And we do our research here in Eilat, but we also collaborate with many commercial companies and universities. Right now in the Institute, we have 8 active researchers. There are plans to hire more, so hopefully we will grow soon. And we cover a wide range of applications, fields, basically. And I'll go specifically, so algae biotechnology, develop a lot of algae-based technology, purification of active compounds from algae, producing of biochemical compounds in algae, genetic manipulation of algae. And we go from basic science, basically studying the algae life cycle, studying the different pathways in the algae, to the final product, whatever it is. Nutrition, here also we produce formulations and different type of food for fish, but also there is a lot of basic science in this field, studying the fish guts, for example, understanding how it deal with different type of food, studying the microbiome in the fish gut and how we can manipulate it. This is also important and can contribute a lot for applications in the future. Fish health, again, we develop tools and technologies for detecting, preventing, and treating different types of diseases. But also, we do basic research, studying the infection process, how the bacteria or virus or parasite goes into the fish and what it does inside. It is very important to understand it in order to be able to develop the treatment or the prevention. One of the core parts of the institute in the past and still is the reproduction and fingerlings production of fish. Basically, being able to domesticate fish, making it lay eggs in captivity, then go through the larval stage up to the fingerlings stage. Again, this is very challenging. while developing technologies, we also do basic science about all this process. We also develop aquaculture systems, and actually not only the engineering, the building, the design of the system, but many technologies like using polyclonal cultures with different type of organisms that use same resources, or take the garbage of one organism, they use it as feeding, things like that. Of course, there is also a lot of effort in the field of water quality, which is part of the system. It must be part of the system because you cannot take the output water and throw it directly to the ocean. You need to treat it before that, and this is the important part. Lastly, we also develop smart systems for mariculture. Basically, the idea is to get the mariculture and the aquaculture to where the maybe more classical agriculture is today, with a lot of sensors and monitoring, real-time monitoring. So we develop sensors, biosensors, we develop microfluidic tools, all these things that are, they don't seem like to be part of the aquaculture, the classic aquaculture system, but we believe that implementing such systems will have a huge impact. And that's it. It's very short, very quick, but you're welcome to contact me. This is my email. You can also visit us in the National Center for Mariculture. And thank you all for your attention, and goodbye.
Hello, my name is Chezi Gildor. I'm a physical oceanographer at the Institute of Earth Sciences of the Hebrew University, and I also work as a private marine consultant. You can find my contact details on this slide. I conduct research in the Eastern Mediterranean and in the Gulf of Eilat. As an example, you can see in the top figures the trajectories of two drifters that I deployed in the Eastern Mediterranean a few years ago. And in the lower figures, you can see an example of a surface current measured in the Gulf of Eilat using high-frequency radar. I conduct observations using a variety of tools on ocean moorings and at constant depths. And in addition, using ocean gliders, which are underwater robots that can stay in the ocean for a few weeks. They communicate via satellite communication, and they can carry all kinds of payloads, including sensor for temperature, salinity, oxygen, hydrocarbon, backscattering, fluorescence, hydrophones, and more. I was part of a Horizon 2020 project aimed to develop such ocean gliders with a depth rating of 6,000 meters to serve the oil and gas industry. In addition to conducting a field measurement, I also do numerical simulation using simple models and up to general circulation model, which are the most complicated models that we use today. I would like to add a few words about oceanography at the Hebrew University. We do both basic and applied research. We have the oldest graduate program in Israel. It was established in 1971. And since then, the Hebrew University has been leading ocean research in Israel, and in certain areas, we are a world leader. We have marine scientists in different disciplines, so we can conduct cross and multidisciplinary research. And we have active collaboration with numerous institutes around the world. We are open to new collaboration with industrial partners and with other academic institutes. And if you need further details, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Hello, I'm happy to be with you today. And first of all, I would like to thank Ariel Capital for arranging this event. I would like to talk about the Israel ports, that are the commercial gate to the ocean that this event is about. So let me share with you a couple of slides and talk about this issue. So first of all, Israel is an island economy. 99% of the Israel international trade are handled by our seaports. That's the importance of the ocean to Israel. So our company, Israel Ports Company, our goal is to promote an efficient maritime supply chain. We do it by the development of Israel's seaports infrastructure, the physical one and the digital one. We also recently, in the beginning of this year, started to operate the pilotage and type services in Israel port. And the reason is that in the new port that we just finished building, the Bay Port in Haifa and South Port in Ashdod, we will give pilotage services, even services to all the competitors in the port bay. In the digital field, what we do is we develop the Israeli Ports Community System, IPCS, with which the majority of the processes in the Israeli maritime supply chain are digital and paperless by a number of services that we give to the maritime community. And the numbers speak by themselves. We have about 2,000 companies connected to our system, 4,000 end users, and more than 7.5 million messages going through our system per month. And we are constantly looking about new ways to digitalize the processes. And for that reason, we are also members of the International Port Community System Association that have a number of initiatives to digitalize the maritime trade. We are also constantly looking for improvements and new solutions powered by technology and innovation. For that reason, we received a number of awards by the International Harbors and Ports Association. We do it by supporting the startup ecosystem, by standard activity, and we work closely with the IMO, IAPH, World Economic Forum, UNCEFAC, and also ISO. Cooperation with the universities is another issue that is very important to promote the technology and innovation, and we do it mostly in the blockchain arena, that technology assessment that we do about those technologies, also drones, autonomous vehicles and vessels, and IoT will give us so much information that we must also start looking about the AI to handle so much information. But all of this innovation, we have constantly look about cyber security issues and this cyber-ready innovation, not only innovation. Lastly, I can say that we have to focus on change, and then we'll get results. So I hope that together with you, we can cooperate and make the change for our oceans. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lee Lignay. I work at the Morris Khan Marine Research Station. We're based in Stotyam, along the shores of Israel. And we are a part of the Leon H. Charney School of Marine Sciences, and specifically the Department of Marine Biology at the University of Haifa. So I'll take you now through a tour of our facility. Right now, we don't have many researchers here because most of them in our lab are in a lab diving for a course. And honestly, because we're a monitoring station of the sea, we're right now very busy doing our monitoring work. This is the Apex Predator Laboratory. It's run by Dr. Aviad Sheinin, and we study a range of organisms at the higher levels of the food chain. So sharks, tunas, dolphins, marine mammals. And we link up with our other labs at the Morris Khan station in order to study many aspects, including pathology, microbiome. And currently we're at the end of our shark season, and we're moving into our tuna season, which is about 2 months long. We also have a sister station, Marine Blue Tech, and that's where marine pathology here. This is where marine pathology, microbiome, coral reef research is done, and also sustainable aquaculture and different aspects of this. And I'll show you now our, we have a greenhouse, not a greenhouse, sorry, a hamama. This is Rami Tzadok. He is doing a PhD with us, but in general, he lives on the kibbutz, and I see it's closed, okay. This is what we call the hamama. We have a lot of, we have different fish tanks of various sizes where we can control all the parameters. And this is a part of the Blue Technologies building here, where they work on integrated multi-trophic aquaculture and other aspects of sustainable aquaculture. We have 3 gentlemen working there, Professor Muki Spiegel, Professor Arik Diamant, and Dr. Amir Niori. We'll head down here. Both of the buildings look the same. We have a lot of equipment. This is our -80 freezer, our cryocube that can store all of our tissue samples for the sharks and the tunas and all of the fish and animals that we sample. This is the students' room. We house at any time around 10 to 20 students in here. Because of Corona, it's much, much less. We're still at limited capacity. We also have a conference room here, and we host smaller workshops of up to about 20 people. I'll take you upstairs. We have five main laboratories. As I said, pathology and microbiome are over in the other building. And in this building, we have the Apex Predator Lab, and then we also have marine biochemistry. This is Professor Michael Chrome. He is working on the Eastern Mediterranean is ultra-oligotrophic. This is Ms. Anat Semel. And this is the lab that they work in. We have an auto analyzer as well. And what we do is we sample the very, very low amount of nutrients that we have in our water here. It's the highest sensitivity. This machine, the auto analyzer, has the highest sensitivity in the Mediterranean to detect the ultra low nutrient concentrations in the water. And we're trying to see at what seasons over space and time, how the nutrient concentrations differ. That's a tour of our lab. I'm sorry that we didn't have many humans here. But like I said, we're usually in the sea because we're water creatures and that's what we monitor. Thank you very much. And it was a pleasure to be a part of this.
Okay, so as promised, the North to South tour, virtual tour of amazing research institutes doing incredible work relating to ocean research. With that, we're ending the session. I want to thank everyone for joining. I want to thank our partners that we thank the long list of partners and presenters in the beginning. I want to thank obviously Startup Nation and Michal for the great work, all of our speakers. And I want to say a couple of technical things for you. Number one, we have a LinkedIn page for this community called Ocean Tech Community. Please go online and see and join and get all the news and all the follow-ups from our events. The second thing I want to refer to, which also came up in the questions, is this session will be recorded and uploaded to our and published in our community page in LinkedIn and in our YouTube channel. So you will have access to all that. We will also follow up with email or with all the participants. So we will answer all the questions that you had and send you the links for the recording. I want also to refer to our next events. We have events that will refer to the specific vertical. This was a general event presenting the general ecosystem, and the following events will be specific to the verticals of the community as were presented in this event. So you will very shortly get emails and invitation to the following events. Can
I just say a small thing?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that showcase of seeing Israel from north to south and all those amazing researchers that are there and that are kind of doing that research. So I really urge these people to kind of look at how we can make these amazing results of these research into applied technologies. I think that's something we should be thinking of.
Yeah,
thank you.
And we remember this community, the main goal is to really promote projects. So what we're going to do is we're going to actively promote connection between the different verticals and the different sectors and really try to, in addition to provide information, to really promote different projects and help Ocean Tech get out there. And with that, I want to just show you last thing. The house of our sponsors and hosts, which is Dan Hotels, and this beautiful view of the Eilat Marina. I don't think it could get much better than that to broadcast from a beautiful place like that. So thank you, everyone. for joining, and we will make sure to follow up. Take care of yourself and of our ocean. Thank you.